Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in this morning. Hope you had a good week so far and hope you stay strong into and through the weekend. So, look, I want to kind of give you I need to kind of give you just a little bit of a historical background and insight before I get into Psalm 74. I need you to understand that for ancient Israel, Old Testament biblical Israel. So the temple that they had was that in their way of seeing things and in their way of viewing it. Listen, that was where God lived. In the innermost part of this temple was this place called the Holy of Holies. And inside of the Holy of Holies, they had what they called the Ark of the Covenant. And on top of the ark was what was called the mercy seat. This was actually considered to be the throne of God. That was where God reigned from. And so God was in there. God was in that temple. God lived in that temple. God's presence was in that temple. So much so that to lose the temple or to lose even Jerusalem, the city of Zion, um, was to cut yourself off from God. There are many times in the Old Testament, or at least one that I can think of, where the Ark of the Covenant was stolen from them when they were defeated in battle, and it was like God had been taken away from them. I just need you to understand that um, that was their mindset. There was a period in their history where Nebuchadnezzar became the king of the great ancient civilization known as Babylon, and Nebuchadnezzar came in and laid siege to the city of Jerusalem. And he actually attacked it three different times. Three different times he attacked it. He attacked it. He attacked it. He conquered it. He took people as slaves. When it was all said and done, after the last thing was done, the entire city was in ruins. The wall was broken down, and the temple was destroyed, and the sacred things in the temple he had stolen and taken out. So the writer of this psalm is reflecting upon that. And so I needed you to understand how much of an impact he would feel like that had upon him. And he starts out and he says, God, why have you cast us off forever? He says, why does your anger smoke against the sheep of your pasture? He's just saying, God, you have totally abandoned us. You have totally left us. You have let them completely take away everything that is meaningful to us. Um, let me read just a few phrases and verses that talk about the destruction of the temple. He says, the enemy has damaged everything in your sanctuary. The enemies roar in the midst of your meeting place. Um, they seem like men who lift up axes among thick trees, and now they break down its carved work all at once. They have set fire to your sanctuary. They have defiled the dwelling place of your name to the ground. They've said in their hearts, let's destroy them altogether. They have burned up all the meeting places of God in the land. When he realizes the magnitude of everything that they've done, he is just totally, he's done. He just feels like there's no hope. There's nothing left. But then he says I'll say in verse 11, he says, why do you withdraw your hand, even your right hand? And then verse 12, it takes a shift. He said, for God is my king from old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. And here's where I want to go to with this. Look, don't let your circumstances determine the way you see God. Let God determine the way you see your circumstances. You see, when he was looking at his circumstances and he was looking at how desperate they were, his view of God was that God had left him, God had abandoned him, God was maybe somehow not able to take care of them. But when he stepped back and thought for a moment and realized that God was the true king and that God was working out his salvation, then he could see all of these circumstances from a different perspective and realize that it was God who was doing his work. And you can read the rest of the psalm, and he gives praise for all the things that God has done in their past. Look, it's real easy to let our circumstances determine the way we see God. You know, maybe your marriage is falling apart. Yeah, that's a happy time, isn't it? Right? Maybe you have a child or a grandchild who has made some choices and their life is just, it's off the rails. It's just gone off the rails. Maybe someone you love, maybe someone very close to you has recently been to the doctor, and the doctor has basically said, there's really not a whole lot we can do. This is just that time for you in your life. Maybe at work. Maybe it's something at work where you've poured your life and your heart into a company or into a business or whatever, and you're being passed over, or you're not being treated fairly, or you're not being treated right. It's easy to let the circumstances of our life cause us to be disappointed with God, cause us to be angry with God, cause us to ask God what he's doing and why he's doing it and where he's at and why he's abandoned us. And yet, if we will stop looking at our circumstances, look up to God, begin to worship him, he can open our eyes so that we can see that he is actually at work in our life. He is actually doing his work for his salvation. For God is my King from old, working salvation in the midst of the earth. That God can help us see our circumstances beyond just the selfishness of it being around us, and beyond really just the environment of this world. And we can see that he is working an eternal weight of glory. Listen, I know that circumstances are real. I know that things that happen to us are real. I know they hurt. I know the burdens are heavy. I know that we struggle through this life. And I know that oftentimes we get discouraged and we get down. We have to learn to throw ourselves in the arms of God. We have to learn to understand that God is still in control, and he is still king, and he still reigns, and he is working out his salvation. Hey, take Psalm 74, read from about verse 12 on down, and use it to get out there in faith today. Love you guys. God bless you. Hang tough.